It's me again, Scott Baker, Precinct 23 in Montgomery County Republican Party. I'm your friendly neighborhood precinct chair, following up on some of the previous videos I've made. Seems they've caused quite a stir, and some people think that I should be investigated and even potentially punished for making them, which I find really absurd. But regardless, I wanted to do a follow-up. I'm going to do a little bit of a recap on some of the stuff I covered in my last video and the previous videos as well, because I want to let you know what's going on. There's some recent events. There's some new events coming on. There's some meetings happening this week that we should be aware of. And there's also some things in the past that I want to make sure everybody's on the same page and understand. Now, the county chair and the steering committee, or the so-called officers of the Republican Party, refused to acknowledge that they violated the party bylaws. I've brought this up multiple times, and they don't want to talk about it. They just keep overruling me. In fact, they've now begun making up stories to hide their failed censure motion. Despite their protest to the contrary, they have made up false stories and published them in their own press releases and online. So I'm going to address that. They are continuing to investigate me in a desperate and comical attempt to cover their actions. That's right, they're still investigating me. This continues ongoing, and in fact, it's in violation of the bylaws right now. They continue to violate the party bylaws in other ways as well as that. I want to let you know how, and I also want to let you know why I think they're doing this. So let's go over the facts. Censure facts. Fact number one, the county chair stated in the January 15th steering committee meeting minutes that the party is moving forward with censure of Reps. Metcalf and Bell. She said it point blank according to the minutes here. Fact two, the January 15th steering committee minutes show no motion or vote was made regarding the censure or creation of an ad hoc committee to draft the censure. Her claim is that she created a committee to draft this censure, an ad hoc committee. We're going to talk about that, but here's their own minutes, right? These are their documents. They created this, the steering committee, not me. This is their minutes, their words. Chairman, party is going forward with the censure of Reps. Metcalf and Bell. No motion either for the censure to be voted on, nor a motion to create the committee in the steering committee where this would have had to have taken place according to the calendar and according to the sequence of events. Okay? Fact three, the February 4th MCTX GOP press release stated that the county chair had appointed Dale Inman, Precinct 27 chair, to a committee to draft a censure resolution. Right here, February 4th, 2025. I have asked Dale Inman as our SREC committeeman to chair a committee to start the process. Here she's claiming that she's created a committee and that she's asked him to chair it. Okay. Why is this relevant? We have a meeting, February 4th. The CEC, fact number 4, February 4th CEC minutes show no motion was made regarding the resolution of censure or approval of an ad hoc committee to draft the censure as required in the CEC bylaws section 7.20, which require that special and ad hoc committees must be approved by the CEC. It's right here. It's unequivocal. This requires approval, confirmation by the CEC in order to create this committee. She never sought it. It was never given. Therefore, this committee that she supposedly claims to have made is out of order per the bylaws. Per the county bylaws, the CEC bylaws. Additionally, fact 5, per CEC bylaws 4.03 and 7.22, notice of all committee meetings must be published on the MCRP website at least 3 days before the scheduled meeting. There are no entries in the MCTX GOP website calendar indicating that an ad hoc censure committee ever met. Another violation of the bylaws. If that committee ever met, they did not announce it and they did not enter it into the calendar as required by our bylaws. Right here at the bottom, section 4.03, meeting notice, section 7.22, transparency. They did not comply with the bylaws. Yet again. Fact 6, February 25th, MCTX GOP press release stated that the county chair had formed an ad hoc committee, ad hoc censure resolution committee, right? And fact 7, On February 25th, Sunday Shibley, Precinct 22 Chair, delivered an RPT Rule 44 resolution of censure seeking penalty 3 or removal from the ballot to Reps Metcalf and Bell. So without authorization, she created a committee, which she was required to get authorization for. They drafted the resolution and delivered it, hand-delivered it to Reps Metcalf and Bell from their own documents. I'm not making this up. This is their documents. These are the facts. This is all on the county website. You're welcome to go look for yourself. So, more facts. Censure facts. Fact 8. At the March 4th CEC meeting, Sunday Shibley, Precinct 22 Chair, made a resolution of censure motion, submitting a resolution of censure that applies only to Montgomery County per our bylaws, Article 11, Section 11.03. Right? In her own words, she
Sunday
said,
Shibley. Consequences of that action. I wish to refute the rumors that the party is attempting to rig the 2026 primary election by attempting to remove or prevent candidates from being placed on the primary ballot. Tonight's resolution is not seeking such action. True, the original intent was to present a Rule 44 resolution. However, due to a lack of clarity on the part of the SREC, we are instead submitting a resolution of censure that applies only to Montgomery County, per our bylaws, Article 11, Section 1103.
in her own words, that was not a mistake. It was not a misspoken event. It was written on the paper that she read from here, from the county website, the Republican Party county website. The video was from the Montgomery County Tea Party PAC, I believe. They recorded the event at the time, and I'm excerpting it. I downloaded a copy, and I'm inserting it here so you can hear her in her own words that she read. This was per our bylaws, Article 11, Section 11.03. I didn't make this up. She said it. She meant to say it. And the fact 9 is that the CEC bylaws, Section 11.03, requires 2/3 or 67% of the vote to adopt a resolution of censure presented in accordance with it. Here it is, 11.03. CEC may, by a 2/3 vote of those present and with 50% or more of the members voting, adopt a resolution censuring a Republican public or party office holder from the bylaws. That's what she referenced. Fact 10. The resolution to censure presented by Precinct 22 Chair Shibley under CEC bylaw 11.03 received 52 votes. Right here. 52 votes for, 32 votes against, and 4 abstentions. That means it was not adopted since it did not meet the 2/3 or 67% threshold to adopt. 52 votes for is 59% of the vote. Yes, that's less than 67%. Fact 11. If the resolution to censure is not considered to be submitted under CEC bylaw 11.03, which is what they announced at the meeting. Sunday Shibley announced clearly that it was supposed to be. You just heard it, you just read it, you can read multiple sources here. They're claiming now that it's under the county bylaws, a generic censure. Well, what is a resolution to censure? It's a resolution, which means no ad hoc or special committee was needed to draft a regular county-wide censure, a resolution of censure. It just simply wasn't needed. Why? Because 7.03, we have a resolutions committee in the county for generic resolutions. A resolution of censure is, by definition, a resolution. Then it would have to be submitted per 7.03. Resolutions must be submitted to the resolutions committee at least 7 days prior to a CEC meeting, which it was not, or it must be adopted by the CEC by the vote of at least 75% of the members present and voting. Last time I checked, 75% is more than 67%, is more than 59%. Fact Fact 12, the resolution to censure Reps Metcalf and Bell did not meet the 75% threshold for a resolution presented to the CEC at a regular meeting under 7.03. It also did not meet the 67% threshold to pass under 11.03. Therefore, Fact 13, the resolution to censure Reps Metcalf and Bell was not adopted. Period. These are their rules. They wrote the rules. They wrote the censure. They presented the censure. They have violated the county bylaws repeatedly in trying to pass this censure. And that's irregardless of what was in the censure. They simply did not follow the rules. And every time I point it out, they overrule me. Which is interesting. Because guess what? Now they're making up stories about what they did. As I said, right? They've now begun to make up stories to hide their failed censure motion. Look what they did on April 4th, right? On February 4th, 2025, here, I'll make it bigger so you can see it. On February 4th, 2025, the Montgomery County Republican Party censured House District 3 Representative Cecil Bell Jr. and House District 16 Representative Will Metcalf. That's a lie. They did not. The party is now awaiting the results of the legislative session and for direction from the Republican Party of Texas Executive Committee to see if any further escalation of the censures is appropriate. So they're waiting to see what happens because they anxiously want to take these to the next level. They want a Rule 44 censure. I'll talk about that more in a little bit here. On a related note, prior to and following the passage of the censures, one member, that would be me, of the Montgomery County Republican Party County Executive Committee produced videos and social media posts with misleading and outright false information regarding the censures. So now we're the misinformation party? What is this? Tell me what's misleading. Tell me what's outright false. Please. I'm waiting. No one has presented one shred of evidence that anything I've said is outright false or even misleading. At the executive committee meeting on April 1st, here they say, when that member sought support from other members of the CEC for his claim that the censures had actually failed, he received no support from any member of the CEC. That's false. They overruled it before anyone could even support it. How am I supposed to get support for something when you overrule it outright? Which was out of order. This is false. This is all false information. Here, look, the Montgomery County Republican Party Steering Committee, you're going to see this again, is still considering whether to take action against that member for knowingly disseminating false information to the public. Knowingly disseminating false information to the public. Prove it. What's false? Show me. Not one person, not one member of this. In fact, they're so desperate to hide this, they won't talk about it in the meetings. Listen here.
Is there any other adjustments to the minutes?
Madam Chairman? That's
Yes.
me. The record should be amended to reflect that the censure did not pass.
So what, I couldn't understand what he said.
The resolution to censure did not pass with a 2/3 majority vote as required by our bylaws.
That's out of order. Okay, well, I don't have my parliamentarian, but we're gonna call that out of order. So moving along,
May I ask why?
because the censure did pass.
No, ma'am, it did not.
Approval, let's see, officers report.
Did not get support. What are they talking about? That's not what happened in the meeting. This is a complete and utter fabrication. The CEC for his claim that censures had actually failed. The censures failed. I've proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Overwhelmingly, the censure failed. It was out of order. It did not pass with the required numbers to pass the censure under their submission. They wrote it, and they did not pass it. But what's really ironic is, look at this. John Boucher, vice chair or co-chair of the party, whatever he wants to call himself, running for House District 16. One of the precinct chairs has now made 2 videos. This was a little while ago, right? He says I made videos about the censure motion. I still stand by my videos, and not one person has provided any evidence that there was anything wrong with what I said. In fact, they're all based on the same information, all factual, and I stand by every word. It says, if any precinct chair wants to bring something before the body and debate it, they're welcome to do so. And that is the proper way to handle issues. I have repeatedly tried to bring this up, and every time they overrule it. So if it's the proper way, and I'm doing it the proper way, which I am, you saw in that video, I was making a motion to amend the minutes to correct their error. They don't want to hear it. In fact, they're so desperate to not hear it, to stand by this censure, that they're investigating me, right? They've created a committee. I showed in the last video that in the steering committee that I attended, they created this bizarre fact-finding committee to investigate my videos and other information out on the internet, which is just ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous on its face, but this part is especially ridiculous. Investigate all you want. In fact, let's all have a big meeting in front of the CEC and watch my videos and go through the bylaws together, and I'll show you once again that this censure motion was not only out of order, but did not pass by any of the measures that they wrote. So they created, in the steering committee, they created this committee to investigate me, right? Well, it's a special committee. What is required for special committees? It has to be confirmed by the CEC. There has been no motion on the floor at a CEC meeting for the last 2 months. Since this has gone on, there's been no motion to confirm the creation of that ad hoc meeting, that ad hoc committee. Which means it's out of order. Once again, yet another violation of the bylaws. Because I know for a fact that the committee must be meeting because there's some information going around. And in fact, they've brought something else up that they're going to have an emergency meeting that I'll talk about here in a minute. And you'll see here at the bottom of the screen. And it on the agenda is to talk about that investigative committee. But how could the investigative committee already be doing investigations and be doing things if it hasn't even been approved yet? By the bylaws, it must be approved. And until it's approved, it doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. It's not even allowed to meet. And in fact, once again, on the calendar, there's no record of that meeting, of that committee ever having a meeting. Interesting. Guess what else? That same meeting that you saw, right? The same meeting here,
Is there any other
where they
adjustment?
overruled me, they went into executive session, a private meeting, where they said I had to turn off my camera because I'm not allowed to record. Guess what the bylaws say? Section 4.08, open to the public, all CEC, is that some or is that a few? No. All CEC meetings and all committee and subcommittee meetings shall be open to the public. Shall. Not may, not might. Shall be open to the public. The public shall be allowed to film or record without disruption at any time. That's clear. That is, there's no confusion about that language. It says what it says. Their rules, they wrote. Same meeting.
All right, we are going into executive session, which, Mr. Baker, that means that the camera needs to be taken down, turned off and taken down. We may not film during executive session.
I just want to be clear. As a courtesy, I'm going to turn it off, but our rules say that we can't.
No, they do not. You may not
4.08.
film during executive
4.08.
session. I'm asking you to
4.08, open to the public. Public should be allowed to film or record without disruption at any time. But we're having secret meetings. In fact, we're about to have another one this Wednesday. Here we go. Here's an announcement from DJ Fike, the secretary of the party. Precinct chairs and officers, the chairman and steering committee has called a special CEC meeting, executive session, for April 16th, 2025, 6:30 p.m. at the party headquarters. Please see the attached agenda. Notice This meeting will be conducted in executive session. This means that only CEC members and officers may attend. That's a violation of 4.08. Information shared by the Candidates Committee during this meeting is strictly confidential and may not be published or recorded. Nor can it be discussed. We can't even talk about it. Or shared with anyone outside the CEC and officers, including family members and or friends. That is a direct violation of our bylaws. And they're doing it again. They've announced it. This is their plan. And they're holding it at the headquarters, which doesn't have much room. So a reminder, due to limited availability of chairs, if you have a folding chair, you might want to bring it along. Here's the agenda. Executive session of CEC. Candidate committee report. That's the thing that they're claiming is for. But right, nobody's allowed in the whole meeting according to this announcement. Right? And nobody can share anything or talk about anything that the candidate committee report shares. Why do we need a secret meeting? Also, number 6, notice this, discuss and consider the establishment of an investigative committee. So now they're going to finally establish it a month and a half later. I think they've already been doing whatever investigation they've wanted to do. I think that they've talked about it repeatedly. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this time they're finally going to follow the bylaws. It would surprise me at this point. So, we're having another secret meeting. So what do the bylaws say about having closed meetings, executive session? In fact, they don't have any provision for us to go into executive session. None whatsoever. There's no provision in our bylaws for us to go into executive session. In fact, 4.08, all CEC meetings and all committee and subcommittee meetings shall be open to the public. So, what is the one scenario where they can go into a closed meeting? The steering committee can go into a closed committee meeting according to the bylaws. Section 6.03A5. Convene a closed meeting to listen to formal complaints from CEC members regarding other CEC members to determine if the complaints have merit, and if so, whether or not the complaint should be escalated to the entire CEC or to the State Republican Executive Committee for adjudication in accordance with the state and county party rules and bylaws. So they can go into closed session, but only to listen to the complaints. And if the complaints have merit, they have to go back to the CEC. They have to go out of closed meeting and go to the CEC or to the State Republican Executive Committee, the SREC, and then handle it in accordance with the state and county party rules and bylaws. That's it. There's no bylaw that allows them to go into executive session. Period. It's yet another violation of the party bylaws. And they keep doing it whenever they want. Well, this begs the question. They're so determined, they've gone out of their way to claim that I'm making false statements, that I'm lying to people, to shut me down every time, every meeting, which I have, every meeting I've gotten up and made motions, made point of orders to rectify this and to correct it, to get us back in line with our bylaws. And every time they rule it out of order, they don't want to listen, they don't want to discuss it, they won't let anybody discuss it. Why? There has to be a reason why. And I think I know the reason. Section 11.01 says, primary ballot endorsement prohibited. This is very specific, and it has been the policy of the Montgomery County Republican Party County Executive Committee, the CEC, for decades, that we do not endorse in the primary election or the primary runoff election. We don't do it. It's prohibited. This biennium, last year, they added some language to the rule. The CEC and steering committee wasn't a part of it until just recently, shall not endorse any candidate or issue on the Republican primary or primary runoff ballot. The exception to this rule is found in Section 3 of this article. Suddenly we have an exception. Matter of fact, it just appeared this biennium. Last year, they added this to the bylaws, section 11.03, censured candidate, Rule 44. They're referencing Rule 44. I explained this earlier in one of my earlier videos, how this adds confusion. They basically have copied the language from Rule 44 and brought it into the county bylaws, the CEC bylaws, as their own rule. But they reference Rule 44, which makes it even more confusing. Really, that reference should say that we have to refer to Rule 44 and follow the guidelines of Rule 44. But they didn't do that. They just said Rule 44 and then created their own version of Rule 44 for the CEC. And remember, we read earlier, 11.03, the CEC may by a 2/3 vote of those present and with 50% or more of the members voting adopt a resolution censuring a Republican Party, public or party office holder or candidate representing all or a portion of the county. And goes on, talks about all the requirements. You're welcome to read these. These are on the, but guess what else is in section 3, right? In 11.03, right? Section 3 of this article, 11.03, says such a resolution after notice and invitation to the office holder to speak before the CEC may include that the named office holder be penalized and censured and declare that no rule or bylaw enacted by any division of the party at any level that demands the CEC be neutral intra-party contests shall be observed with respect to the named candidate. What that means, neutral inter-party contest, that's the primary election. That's what this is about. They want to use this exception, right? The exception to this rule is found in 11.03. So now, if they censure a candidate under 11.03 or RPT Rule 44, they can use the party resources to campaign for or against candidates in the primary election. That's what this says. It means that the rules don't apply in the censure scenario. So this is what it means, 100%, just to dot the I's and connect the T's here, right? If they pass a censure under 11.03 or RPT Rule 44, both of them have similar language to this, and that means that Section 11.01, the prohibition on endorsing in the primary, is now eliminated. Means they can use party resources. When they print out a mailer or a voter guide, or they make phone calls, or they text, they do a text campaign or social media campaign, they can then use the party resources, any money given to them, any of the social media resources, any of the email campaigns or anything like that, they can use those against candidates that have been censured. And you say, well, Scott, why does that matter? Surely they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't want to put their thumb on the scale in a primary, a Republican Party primary. The Republican Party just doesn't do that. You're right. We didn't do that before. But they've put these rules in. These are new rules. These aren't long-standing rules that have been around for a long time. They created these rules for this purpose. In fact, something very interesting, here's the steering committee, right? The steering committee, our own little deep state inside the Montgomery County Republican Party, who get to make decisions and do things on behalf of the party, apparently without even having to check with the CEC anymore, even though our bylaws require it. Well, you see this guy right here, Vice Chair, Co-Chair John Boucher. He's Vice Chairman of the party, right? Turns out he's running for House District 16. Isn't that curious? Who is he trying to censure? Representative Will Metcalf, who is the representative for House District 16. Who's sitting here? Right there. At these meetings, making decisions. He's not a precinct chair. He's not the county chair. But he sure does want this censure. You've seen his social media posts already talking about falsehoods that I've supposedly made. Alleged falsehoods and misleading statements. Yet he can't produce a single falsehood or misleading statement. Refuses to. He's been asked. Multiple people have asked him online. What is their opinion about the party? Remember at the CEC steering committee meeting that I went to and I recorded? Look who's sitting there. When I said, whose authority are you using to just eliminate precinct chairs from office? Listen to what they say.
On, we can declare them vacant.
We being the steering committee?
We being the party.
That's funny. The steering committee is not the party. The RPT is not the party. The CEC is not the party. I'm not the party. The Republican voters are the party. That's what the law requires. The Republican voters are the party. The CEC is supposed to represent them. The steering committee was created to strip power away from the duly elected county chair several years ago. And it has since taken more power unto itself, such that, as you saw in that video, they were ready to just declare precinct chairs invalid, no longer in their seats. They were just going to eliminate them. Several of us worked to get this before the CEC, and guess what happened? The CEC declined to remove them from office. All of them. Not a one of these passed the CEC. But if we hadn't got it before the CEC, these folks in the steering committee were ready to just declare them, to say, we, the steering committee, we, the party. That's unacceptable. It's just flat wrong. The Republican voters of Montgomery County should be free to choose their candidate in the Republican primary election. We don't need our candidates chosen by party insiders in secret meetings. That's not what the Republican Party stands for. It's not what we should stand for. This fight belongs at the ballot box. That's where we choose our candidates. That's the point of the primary system. The primary is where the party, the voters, choose their candidate to run against the other party in the general election. That's the entire purpose of the primary election. You completely undermine the entire system if you go put your thumb on the scale and try to remove or censure and then run against, with the party's mechanisms, a candidate that you don't like. And the reality is that these candidates not only are Republican candidates, they've already been chosen by the Republican voters. They're sitting elected officials who were chosen by the Republican voters of Montgomery County in their respective House districts. So the party has already spoken. The people have already spoken. Additionally, we are the party of transparency. That's what Doge is all about. That's what Donald Trump is doing. He's opening up the books. That's what we should stand for. That's what we should stand on. We should be proud of that. We should be open. Our bylaws require it. Our bylaws, the CEC bylaws are clear. Our meetings are to be open to the public and available for recording. They're open to recording at any time. Why? To keep everything above board, to ensure things like this don't happen, that the party doesn't violate its own bylaws in a back room, conduct secret meetings where nobody can hear what's said or see what's done, or even talk about it, apparently. That's not the Republican Party. The CEC and the steering committee have violated the CEC bylaws multiple times, and they seem intent on continuing to do so. This must end immediately. It's simply unacceptable for the Republican Party to be going down this road. That is not the party of Lincoln. That is not the party of Reagan. That is not the party of Donald Trump. It's a party I don't even recognize. And we better stop it soon, or we're going to start losing elections. Because the public won't tolerate this. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful. I hope it informs you and lets you know what's going on. I hope that you'll get involved. I'd like to encourage people to get involved. I believe in transparency. I believe in the Republican Party. I believe in the principles that we stand for transparency and open, honest elections, choosing our primaries, choosing our candidates at the primary. I believe in the voters. I don't want to take the vote away from them. I want to make sure more of them show up, more of them are informed, more of them know about the issues and the candidates they're voting for so that they can make an informed choice. And that's what I believe the Republican Party should be. And I hope you agree with me. Please let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to hear from you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm happy to discuss this. I hope we have a CEC meeting just for this, in the open, recorded and televised, to discuss all of this. Because it's important. And we should. Thank you, and God bless you. And God bless Texas, and God bless the United States.